Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Coffee and Football, presented by Adam Lowy and the Lowy Law Firm. I'm your host, Blake Monroe, where I'm joined each and every day by Bobby Burton and Jerry Hamilton. Tell us where you're checking in from, what you're drinking, get your questions in, even tell us what you're cooking for Thanksgiving, as we're one day away from that. But guys, let's start with the big news. Of course, the college football playoff rankings came out yesterday, or last night, I guess I should say. And I'm going to put them up here. Oregon, number 1, Ohio State, 2, Texas at 3, Penn State, Notre Dame, Miami, Georgia, Tennessee, SMU, Indiana, Boise State, and Arizona State. Look like they're going to be your top ones.
I can't believe it.
My initial takeaway is it will change, of course, but if this actually played out, you couldn't have a better bracket for Texas in the history of a 12-team playoff. It'll change. People are going to lose. It's going to change. But if this was it today, Texas would play for a national championship. Period, in my opinion. They would beat Notre Dame or SMU, and they would beat Penn State, and they play for the national championship, in my estimation.
See, I got to be honest. I would rather be – to get to the semifinals, wouldn't you rather be 5 or 6? The whole thing for me is I'd rather be 5 or 6 in this thing.
I'd rather be 3 than 1, 2 than 1. How would you like to play Georgia in the second round game?
Yeah.
If you're Oregon. And then if you win that, you have to play Ohio State. That's not the bracket I want to be in.
No, I like it how it is right now.
Yeah. All right. That's assuming Texas wins the SEC.
Right.
I think that's a fair assessment overall. My problem is we've got Indiana hanging out at 10, and they're going to take a playoff spot.
Yeah,
and I think we're just going to have to deal with it.
Yeah,
that's my opinion. I mean, we're just going to have to deal with it, and I don't know unless A&M squeaks in by winning the SEC championship, and that's not squeaking in. That's going through the front door, by the way, if they win it. Or if South Carolina gets in somehow by beating Clemson and then going above an Indiana. I don't see how a 3-loss South Carolina team goes above an Indiana.
Yeah,
but I think look, one of SMU or Miami is going to be out, I would think. But we'll see, I guess. I'm a little flummoxed about how this is all coming out because I don't think the best teams are going. Maybe a reason why, and I also will say this: I don't like the 4 teams getting buys. Like, why does Boise State get a buy? Why does Miami get a buy? I don't like that.
No,
12 teams for the Birds. I thought it was for the Birds when they announced it.
Yeah,
do a natural even number, like 2, 4, 8, 16, and be done with it. Instead, they did this half cockeyed thing, I think, to appease the bowls at some level, but I just don't like it.
Yeah, it's just a natural progression to 16 for me.
Yeah, gotta be.
I don't know how long we're going to have it at 12 here, but I suspect it'll be too long. But the whole deal with the Boise State, if they beat Oregon State, I believe that's who they have, Oregon State. Yeah. If they win, they're 4 because they're going to be ranked higher than Arizona State if that's who actually wins the Big 12. But yeah, I mean, look, that if Texas beats A&M, then if you just look at the brackets, then that SEC championship winner does become a lot more important if you're Georgia or Texas. Because the way things are set up right now, where would you rather be on this bracket? I mean, there's just no question where you'd rather be on this bracket. You'd rather be 2 than 8. Because you think about, well, okay, this is what Oregon's got. But if you're Georgia, you got to have a rematch with Tennessee. Then you got to go play Oregon, probably in the Rose Bowl. You got to travel across the country. Then you're going to have to turn around and play Ohio State.
You can't tell me, though, if you're Ohio State, you get a cakewalk to the semifinals. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
That's why I said I'd rather be. I mean, you literally get a cakewalk to the semifinals if you're Ohio State. Like, just hand me number 5 if that's going to be my. If I have to play the number 12 seed, which is going to be someone like Arizona State, who you know, or I mean, I guess BYU, whoever wins the Big 12 is going to be 12, and you're number 5. Give me number 5 right now, because then I walk in and I play Boise next, who's number 11. I mean, the 5, you know, the number 11 overall seed and the number 12 overall seed, the 5 walks into the semifinals and plays Oregon.
Yeah, you want to be the 2 or the 5, in my opinion.
Okay.
The what? I mean, 2 or 5. I'd rather be the 2 and have the week off, an extra week off for health wise at that point. But your 2 and 5 is in this bracket. We'll see how it ends up. In this bracket is the wheelhouse.
Yeah.
All right. Before we move on here, Bobby, can you tell everybody out there about Adam Lowy and the Lowy Law Firm?
Yeah, I really want to give a shout out. You know, this is Thanksgiving, and I want to say thank you to our sponsors, and Adam is one of those. He helps us make this all possible for you guys and for ourselves. Adam and his group have been helping injured Texans for 20 plus years. They've take on cases where you might be due compensation from a car wreck, truck wreck, automobile accident of any kind, including an ATV or motorcycle or 18-wheeler. Adam and his group have been helping injured Texans. Give them a call. It's a free, no strings attached consultation. LoweyLawFirm.com. Visit them at LoweyLawFirm.com. Thanks, Adam, and happy Thanksgiving from our family to yours.
Okay, guys. Next, let's move on to recruiting here. Jerry, what is the latest there?
Yeah, it looks like, look, one of the things I was tracking yesterday, is anybody going to back off December 4th, maybe announce earlier? I received the text last night that Kellen Wiley is going to be December 4th. We're expecting all these guys to be December 4th, and it makes sense. We're a week out from signing day, by the way. 8 hours of live coverage here on Coffee and Football. So go ahead and tell your wife and your girlfriends that you're out for the day.
And your boss.
Yeah, which hopefully is not the same. But you know, that's bad news if it's the same, because then that means you are totally being bossed around all the time. But we're a week away, so it looks like everybody's pretty much going December 4th. Could somebody peel off that? Possibly. But it looks like everybody's going December 4th right now that's left on the board. The only couple of things I wanted to say early on, and we'll take some recruiting questions, obviously. David Keith Williams has one on Javion Hilson off of our recruiting live yesterday, is here's the 6 guys we're truly monitoring. Could somebody else pop up? Always possible. But these are the 6 guys we're monitoring. I think Justice Terry, the feeling is Georgia is the main competition, and not Auburn. Now, me doing this 2 decades, I'm not going to sit here and say Auburn's out. I'd be an idiot if I did. Look at Auburn's recruiting class. But I think Georgia is what it feels like. Maybe in Austin is the main competition. But again, I'm not sitting here saying Auburn can't win that recruitment, because I've covered Auburn. Bobby, you've covered a long time, and they get 5-star guys in the state of Georgia. Derek Brown, they've got guys before. But that maybe this is more looking like Georgia, which would make sense. Kirby Smart doesn't want to lose a 5-star defensive lineman in his own state. That's a different level recruit. Go ask old Will Muschamp, and he's the head coach at South Carolina, and Trevon Walker's mom ran track at South Carolina, and they weren't going to get it. So there is that piece to it as well. And here's some tape on Justice Terry. Then, you know, the other thing I was going to say is Michael Fasusi. I think I received a couple of DMs or something that Texas didn't move the needle. It's been reported. I'm just here to tell you, I don't believe that's true. I think Texas is in it. And I think they have a shot at it. What he's going to do, I don't know. I did put up a report on TexasFootball.com with a couple of little nuggets this morning that, you know, look, Oklahoma said you're not committed if you take visits. That didn't stop Fasusi from taking visits. So that's a guy that is really considering his future and where it should be. I mean, so that's just a reality. We're looking at on Texas Football, we're looking to see who goes on the visit with him to A&M this weekend. I think that's going to be key, because the visit to Texas was his dad and sister. And there you see, by the way, Justice Terry, he's a really good 5-tech prospect. Raw, got a ton of upside, though, ton of ability. He's going to be a 5 tech that grows into a 5/3. So we'll see what happens with Fasusi. We're waiting to see who shows up in College Station on that visit. I think that'll be big. But again, all these guys are trending to December 4th right now. I think Texas probably should feel pretty good about Kellen Wiley, but you got to get there. And Texas this is where Texas is at. They're battling Georgia, Texas A&M, the entire state of Florida down the stretch. Those are the 3 states you want to recruit. I mean, and you got to recruit Southern California, but the majority of big battles in future years, Bobby, are going to be in Texas, Georgia, and Florida if you're doing this right as an SEC power.
I have no problem with what's going on at Texas right now from a recruiting perspective. And I say that from a negative standpoint when in reality I'm looking at it, and y'all put that remaining targets graphic up. 4 of the 6 are high level defensive players. You just showed the Justice Terry film. He's a 5-star. Nathaniel Marshall, we watched him yesterday, Jerry. He's a little bit of a freak. We know what Javion Hilson can do, and Kellen Wiley is a 6'3", 43-foot triple jumper that likes to play through contact based on, then you add guys like Fasusi and Terry on offense. And I just look, I don't know if Texas is going to get 2 of the 6, 3 of the 6, 4 of the 6. I will say if they end up with 4 of the 6, Texas needs to skip to the finish line and, be really, really happy because these are talented football players.
If Texas gets 4 of the 6, they're going to finish probably with the number 1 class in the country. Now, it could go back and forth. It's been on what Justice Terry is big for the class rankings fans. That Justice Terry recruitment's huge because if he goes to Georgia, that gives them another 5-star, right? And that bumps their average already up, and they're tough to catch at that point unless you run the table on everybody else. If he goes to Auburn, Naeem Alford flips crazy as this sounds, Auburn has a chance at the number 1 class. I mean, that would be 2 5-stars late for Auburn, right? And this is with everybody keeping guys in the fold. But Bobby, if Texas wins 4 of the 6, I think they have a pretty good, because of who's left on the board, they got a pretty good chance to finish number 1 in that scenario. Somebody, Jolie Friol asked about the Jamie French tweet December 4th. That's just signing day for me.
Everybody wants to read into what tweets mean, and they don't always mean what you think they mean, guys. I was going to put it that way. Hey, Tony.
I think more important than any tweet is Jamie French was in Austin, not Gainesville last weekend.
Yeah.
Myron Charles the same.
Yeah.
But with that being said, people know on the 40 acres that Florida ain't giving up on Myron Charles. They'll keep pushing. They're going to make Texas earn it. As they should.
A&M's not giving up on Nick Townsend either, by the way.
No, they shouldn't. These guys are all – I think Nick Townsend may be a 5-star kid in this class. If A&M gives up on him, they should move to another conference. It's not the way this should work. These should be battles. If you're not battling versus these teams for the very best players, you're recruiting the wrong players and you go 7-5.
We've got Tony Hills coming up around 8:30. Our good friend, former
That'll
Texas,
be low energy,
and that will be good because he's been waiting for the A&M game all year, guys. I gotta tell you. So he's going to get on the mountaintop and preach a little bit, I think. We also have some other things to discuss. Kelvin Banks and Jade Barron nominated for national awards yesterday. Barron, one of the 3 nominees for the Thorpe, alongside Caleb Downs and Malachi Starks. Look at this side-by-side comparison, Jerry and Blake, of the stats. If you're choosing that, how do you not choose Jade Barron? That is just an easy discussion, right? You would think. But based on some other things, I'm not so sure that everybody feels that. I think name recognition going into a year seemingly plays into this a little bit, if that makes sense. And I disagree with that. But Gunnar Helm did not make the Mackey Award finalist, by the way, and he had more yards per catch than Colston Loveland, who is a great player. Guy's been injured a little bit this year. So
Well, I mean, the kid from Penn State's going to win that award. That deal's done.
Yeah, but he's not even a true tight end. I mean, they line him up a wildcat quarterback and wide receiver as much as they do anything.
By the way, because I know a lot of parents of players and recruits and everybody listens to this show. If you're a DB and you don't immediately call Sark and say, I want to wear number 7 at Texas, you're doing it wrong. You're missing the keys here, guys. Some of these answers are very easy. If Jade wins the Thorpe and you're a DB and you go to Texas, I don't care what number you've worn your entire life back to Pee Wee football. You request number 7. If you do, your odds to win awards go way up.
So Hioli Frioli wants to know, do y'all subscribe to the Coach Prime thought that Hunter got snubbed?
I think he's going to win the Heisman. So I don't, what's snubbed? People going to name him he's going to win the Heisman. I don't necessarily prescribe to that. I will say this. I haven't looked at his stats on defense. If he were just solely a defensive back, I would say most likely he got snubbed. But he's been playing 2 ways. And, look, I'll say whatever. That guy is a freak of an athlete. So, and I have no problem with his play on the field. So, he may have gotten snubbed. He may not have. Who knows?
Yeah.
And if he's allowed multiple touchdowns this year, whereas Jade hasn't, or Starks or Downs haven't, maybe that's your answer too.
That's right. All right. We'll have Tony Hills on in just a moment. But first, Jerry, I'm going to let you tell everyone out there about the good folks at South Point Dodge.
Well, let me tell you something right now. You know who would look good driving to South Point Dodge and talking Texas football? Tony Hills. Hey, Texas football fans, score an easy point this season when you get to the point at South Point Dodge. South Point Dodge has over 600 vehicles in stock, and their award-winning sales staff doesn't do games or gimmicks. They just get straight to the point by getting you the best deal. So score big today at South Point Dodge. Come see us off I-35 in South Austin or at southpointdodge.com. Get to the point at South Point Dodge. South Point Dodge is Austin's automotive everything. Looking to sell your car? Get South Point's best offer over the phone or online, southpointdodge.com. And now for my Manscaped read, Tony Hills is going to come in here and clean up the Aggies defensive front.
But first, before he does that, I need to let everyone know about Tile. And the holidays are upon us. Thanksgiving's here, and then we march right into Christmas. And while it's the most wonderful time of the year, it also presents a ton of challenges. Whether you're staying at home or traveling, it's busy season, and keeping track of what matters most to you can sometimes feel more hectic than merry. So stress less this holiday by stocking up on Life360's Tile trackers. When you're worried about your family's safety or something goes missing, just use the Tile app. And that's what I use it for. When something goes missing, especially my keys because of my wife and my oldest son. But the good news is with Tile, I don't have to worry. I just ring my Tile when they go missing, or I can even track down their location on a map. You can also add Tile trackers to your Life360 and see your family and all of your family stuff in one spot. It's that easy. It's that convenient. So family-proof your family with Life360's Tile trackers. Visit tile.com today and use promo code ONTEXAS to get 15% off. That's tile.com, promo code ONTEXAS, and get 15% off. And now, without further ado, Tony, how's it going this morning?
Man, what's going on? Hey, Blake, you are a aficionado when it comes to this commercial. I want to let you know, man. I don't know if the fans understand how much work you actually put into this thing. I thought I was watching a TV commercial.
Thank you, Tony.
Honestly.
Jerry, I appreciate it.
What's up, man? Bobby B. Bobby got a new rap name. I don't think y'all guys know about Bobby B's raps. Go ahead and get his single. It'll be out after the Longhorns get into this SEC championship. He got a rap song that he's going to do for us for the next one that we get on. What's up, OTF, man? What's happening?
How you doing, Tony? We've got to ask you some questions. A big game this weekend, obviously. You've played in this game. One of the things we were talking with Billy Lucci last night of Texags on this live stream. And Billy brought up something that I thought was really interesting, Tony. the Texas A&M game in its first year back is the most meaningful rivalry game in the country this year. On the most meaningful Thanksgiving rivalry game, because if you think about it, what are the other ones? Michigan, Ohio State. Michigan's no good. Ohio State's going to win that. Auburn, Alabama. What are they playing for other than state pride? Immediately, the first year back on the stage, Texas A&M becomes the ultimate Thanksgiving rivalry game. You've played in it. What's it like, both home and away? And now, take it away, Mr. Hills.
Yeah, listen, I am so excited that this rivalry is back. It's good for college football. It's good for the fans. The fact that, this game has meaning, kudos to both teams, right? And a lot of times it was usually A&M trying to knock Texas off from going to do something great. And now the winner of this game goes on to represent, for the SEC championship. So the way that I look at it is simple, man. Many choose the path of least resistance, Bobby, which means that their greatest potential suffers in the shadows of obscurity. And so Texas is going to have a lot of resistance when it comes to them getting to where they want to get to. This game is going to be a physical game. I know in times past, we've seen some pretty high-scoring games. I'm not so sure this game is going to be high-scoring. I think that it's going to come down to the team that has the ball last. I think both defenses are formidable. And I think that it's going to come down to the offense that doesn't make the most mistakes. For Texas, we can't put the ball on the ground. We cannot do it. We cannot give this team more opportunities than the opportunities that are given. We got to be sound in our protection and our pickup. I would love to see a more balanced attack. I would actually like to see Sark change his program up a little bit and start with the physicality first and then leverage the pass game to take it off towards the end. And the reason being is when you play in an environment like this, you're a lot more susceptible to mistakes in the passing game because of communication errors. There's a lot of stunts and blitzes and things that you may or may not have seen. A lot of times when you can gash those things on the ground, it settles a defensive coordinator down to sit back on his heels a little bit, as opposed to getting after the quarterback and causing maybe an interception or a tip reflection of the ball or, any of these particular type of issues. So if we want to minimize the issues in this game, man, I really want to see us go out and run the ball. And this is what it looks like for the fans, right? Not to get frustrated and flustered if he does do this. It's 2 yards in a cloud of dust. It's put him in a phone booth, right? It's maybe a couple 3 and outs, but you stay with it. And the reason being is because Texas is built on its defense creating opportunistic opportunities for its offense. I don't see A&M being able to do the things that they've done, especially in the zone read. If you think you're going to zone read us for 4 quarters, I promise you it's going to be a long night for you. That quarterback's going to have to make some throws. And so as I'm looking at all of what encompasses in this game, man, it's really going to come down to our defense being phenomenally and lights out. It's going to come down to the offensive line answering the challenge on both sides, right? Whether it be the run game or the passing game. And then it's going to come down to Quinn Ewers playing like the Quinn Ewers at the beginning of the season. If there was ever a game where we need Quinn to step up and be who we think he can be, it was going to be this game. So those are the 3 things that I'm looking for going into the A&M Texas game.
Hey, Tony, as an offensive lineman, so I don't know if you watched the Auburn game, but I went back and watched a replay of that. A&M twisted and stunted themselves out of a lot of plays in that game. If one as an offensive lineman, do you prefer to go up against? I think the answer is pretty obvious. Do you prefer to go up against a talented defensive front that just plays you head up and says, may the best man win, or plays a lot of games? One, and if you were A&M, would you play Texas that way, or would you just say, we got NFL guys too, we're going to play straight up against you?
Yeah. So I love that question, Jerry, and I understand what you're asking. You're talking about from it being a physicality standpoint as opposed to it being a mental game in the trenches, right? Obviously, most linemen, they would love to say mano a mano, right? That's the physicality of the sport. But there are times where you're fine with playing that game, especially if we're prepared for it, right? So, for instance, if we have a 4 down situation and they run a ET stunt, and we're running, maybe a counter play. As a guard and tackle combination, we can push our guard off to get to a backer quicker to climb the next level. As long as that left tackle gets his foot in the ground, he can literally seal off the whole backside of the defense. And now the tackle has looped himself outside of the hole, which gives that backer a huge lane, right, in explosive downs. So in those particular situations, it helps you. I think that for Texas, it really shouldn't matter. I mean, they've been thrown everything but the kitchen sink from the SEC defenses. And I mean, the record speaks for themselves, right? 11-1. And I think that when it comes to this particular game, if I'm Elko, I'm looking at, we're going to line up and we're going to do what we do, and we're going to make it a physical game, because if you do anything else, Texas has the speed to hurt you everywhere, right? So if we get fancy and we start moving people out of gaps, those turn into 20, 30, 40-yard explosive plays. That can get you down quick. And let's not forget, guys, Texas does have the ability to put up points very quickly, right? And if A&M finds themselves in that type of situation, I don't know if they can match that. Like if you look up and it's the second quarter and we're up something like 17-7 or 21-10 or something like that nature, it can get really hard for A&M because we have a national championship type defense to be able to sustain the lead. It reminds me a lot of the 08 Steelers or the 2000 Ravens, where we didn't ask a lot from these offenses, right? We were going to do what we did on defense and keep you in the game. And then you just make those one or two plays that seals it, and we'll handle everything else. And literally, that is how I see Texas built up. Texas is a defensive team. I know we've been used to the explosion of offenses when we've looked at Texas in the past, but they are a defensive team that plays complementary football from time to time in a lot of these games.
I love it, Tony. Tony, we have a question for you from Mike Gosnell, and this one, we saw it, and I said, this is going to be asked to Tony instead of just all of us. Mike with a super chat. Good morning, gents. Excited to see the UT A&M game back. What are your all-time favorite moments, plays from the rivalry, excluding Justin Tucker's game-winning field goal to close the first chapter of the rivalry? Happy Thanksgiving. What are your favorite remembrances or plays, Tony, that you were maybe a part of or remember growing up, etc.?
You remember when we went to A&M during the national championship run, and we stunk the bed?
Yeah. It may have cost Vince the Heisman.
It may have cost.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you why that was my favorite memory. Because now when you fast forward into USC and it's 4th and inches, we've already been in a high pressured situation in that game. I think that game prepared us for that moment to be able to make that stop and go to that go-ahead touchdown. I've always been in that type of mind space, and I know that's not the sexy play, right? But if you look at it in its entirety, and I hope Mike G is getting something out of this, but if you look at the game in its entirety of how we struggled in that particular space, but we still were able to overcome and come out on top. You take that moment and put it at USC, and it's the same situation, and we were able to answer the bell again. So I think that experience for me was the greatest moment of any A&M game. And then obviously not a game that I played in, but we gotta give it to the great Ricky Williams, man. I mean, come on, what are we talking about here? You know what I mean?
That might make you a Texas fan. Were you you had to be a younger kid when that happened, Tony? What do you remember that happened?
I absolutely, so the reality, I was at 98. So what am I, freshman, getting ready to go into my freshman year in high school, right? So, obviously, and I was a tight end too, Bobby. So, I looked at the running backs as it pertains to how to run the football, man. So, Earl Campbell, a lot of people don't know, Earl Campbell has always been my favorite player. And they'll say, you weren't even alive then. I said, well, that's what YouTube is for. Right? So, yeah, so that was my favorite moment. I hope that helps the young man that asked that question.
Hey, Tony, I got a question for you. For those in the chat that don't know, Tony's got a son who's a hooper coming up, right? So I got to put this one on you, Tony. If your son had 3 offers, A&M, Oklahoma, and Alaska Anchorage, where would you tell him to go?
Alaska. Yeah, go to Alaska. Go get a new experience.
Anchorage would be better than that.
Yeah, you can't come back. You can't come back here with any of those other colors, man. So, I mean, if you want to come home, this is not the prodigal son situation. I'm not going to be waiting on you if you go to another school. You better go to Alaska.
Tony will go salmon fishing while his son's playing basketball.
Man,
Tony,
listen. Yeah, he's gonna send it back to us. It's gonna be the best fish his family ever had. Look, he's helping in more ways than one.
Hey, Tony, got to ask you, what do you think makes the difference in this game ultimately between Texas and Texas A&M? Is it the defense? You talked a little bit about that. Is it the Texas A&M's offensive line's experience, giving just enough offensive effort to the Longhorns? Well, where do you see this game overall?
The team that sticks together and doesn't crumble underneath the pressure is going to be the team that wins. This is just one of those games. We can talk about coaching. We can talk about statistics. We can talk about matchups. At the end of the day, the team that sticks together and has the belief that they are going to the next stage is going to be the team that wins. A lot of times, man, we have these analytics and all of these different talk shows that talk about if they do this and if they do that. But I can tell you, man, being in the game, when it's third down and it's 3rd and 3. And we got to have it. It's the fourth quarter with less than 2 minutes. It's the belief in the man next to me that everybody's going to do their job no matter what the situation entails. And we're going to make it happen. A lot of people look at that run with VY, but we had a lot of great runs. Even with Colt, which is what I knew. This is when I knew Colt was going to be special. As a redshirt freshman, when you saw him lay his body on the line, get hit and get hurt and wake up, and start trying to limp to the huddle to call the next play, man, you fight for guys like that. So like when you're fighting for your guy next to you and everybody has that belief, that's going to be the team that wins. If A&M's will is stronger than Texas' will, there ain't nothing you're going to be able to do about that. There's not an X and an O. There's not a statistic. There's nothing for that. This is a man's game. And the men are going to have to come out and play the game the way the game is supposed to be played for 4 quarters. This is going to be a 4-quarter fight. So you better bring your haymakers.
Hey, Tony, we got another super chat here for you. This one from Trace Little. Thank you, Trace. He says, Tony, where do you think the guys on the O-line go in the draft? And who is your favorite and why? Trace says his favorite is Jake Majors. He thinks he'll be the biggest loss because he is the brain center.
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, the easiest guy is our left tackle, right? 1st round pick, right? And I believe he's also up for the Outland Trophy. If I'm looking, I mean, obviously he goes 1st round. If I'm looking at Cam Williams, I think Cam Williams is a day 1 guy. I think he falls somewhere in the second, in the middle of the second round, somewhere around in the 2nd round. DJ Campbell, just because a lot of times they just don't take. I mean, Zach Martin snuck in with Dallas towards the end of the 1st. DJ has 1st round talent. I just don't know if this draft, because of the needs of a lot of these teams, that he would go that high. But I see him, Cam, and Banks going day 1. Majors and Connor, I'm looking somewhere between the 4th and 6th round with those guys, right? And here's the thing. When you look at it statistically, a lot of times those 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th round guys last a lot longer than the guys up top because there's a lot to prove and there's opportunity for growth there. When you come in as a high round draft pick, they're expecting you to come in and do exactly what you're supposed to do now. And a lot of times we see that doesn't always work out. You can look at what's going on in Pittsburgh with Broderick Jones, right? He's not having the best of seasons, and he hasn't been having the best of seasons for the first 2 years that he's been there. I think that he would be a player that would be able to benefit from being able to sit down behind a veteran and understanding how the game works. So sometimes, you go for these plug and play guys and it just doesn't work out. And the guys that come in at the latter rounds that have a year or 2 to get ready, they have long sustained careers. My favorite player though, man, I was a left tackle. So, I gotta keep it on the left side, man. But when you look at the things that he's overcome off the field with his mom and things of that nature, man, how can you not root for a kid like that, right? And so, I'm gonna have to say that's my favorite one. But I do agree that the biggest loss is going to be your center because he makes everything go. He identifies the fronts, especially in the SEC, man. We see so many defensive style type of fronts. So being able to replace that, Coach Flood has a lot of work ahead of him.
Yeah, I agree with that. I remember you guys had a guy named Lyle Sinline at one time. that was an undrafted free agent, ended up playing
Yep.
10 years in the league, for the Cardinals. I would not be surprised if that's not a similar situation for Jake Majors.
Yeah.
Just that kind of thing. All right, Tony, I appreciate you so much, buddy. You are always a gem on Wednesdays. I know where are you going to be watching the game? That's what I got to know. Where are you going to be watching the game on Saturday?
You see how I'm dressed, Bobby?
Yeah.
I'm on some James Bond type stuff. If I had to tell you, I don't know if you'd be able to do the show anymore, Bobby. You know what I mean? No, man. I'm gonna probably be at a friend's house or something of that nature, just hanging out, kicking it, and screaming and hollering at the TV like I always do. I like to be with friends and family on games like this. I know a lot of people want to be in the moment, but I don't know about you, Bobby, but I just don't think that paying a car note for a ticket is worth it. I love Texas. I love Texas, but the economy, I'm in the finance space, man. The economy's hard out here. So I'll be there in spirit. Oh, I got one thing before I go. One more thing.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say I got one more thing because I know I got to get off of here. In case y'all didn't know, I've talked to a clockmaker, I've talked to doctors, I've talked to lawyers, and they've all agreed that it's 8:49 right now, and OU still sucks.
Tony, you take it easy, buddy. Thanks for joining us on
Can't wait for the fishing stories. Can't wait for the fishing stories in Alaska in 2035.
Take care.
Warm coat. Let's go.
Good stuff, man. As always, Tony, pleasure to listen to. Always with a unique perspective. Good stuff there, Blake and Jerry. I thought Jerry, I thought you had an interesting question there. What is A&M going to try to do to Texas with their defensive line? Are they going to try to push Texas around? Are they going to do, or do they feel like they're going to have to play games a little bit? With Auburn, they played some games. What do they think they have to do with Texas? I will say this. If you play the wrong game against wide zone and get washed, it can be a real problem for you. So I bet they try to go more straight up on Texas, Jerry.
If they don't, then they're hard-headed. Because the problem with the twist that they're running against Auburn, in my estimation, is if you twist Shamar Stewart, Shamar Turner outside, and they had some twists where both of those guys are working outside, it takes them too long to get to the quarterback. Sark's routes are going to have time to develop. And so your mid-range crossers, all those are going to have time to take shape, form. That if I'm A&M, I play Texas straight up. I have the players to play Texas straight up. If they start to play those twisty games with both D tackles working outside or both D tackles working outside the tackles, I think that plays into Sark's hands. I'm interested to see what A&M does with their defensive front. Because I get it, you have to do some things, but when you have 4 NFL draft picks on the defensive line, I'm not sure I play games that much with those guys. Be interested to see what they do in this game.
I also say when you do that, you put Torian York in jeopardy. Torian York is a little bit of the heart and soul of that Aggie defense as a middle linebacker, but he's also in a sea of NFL draft picks on that side of the ball. He is likely not one, in my opinion. And so it puts him in a little jeopardy. It'll be interesting. Sark's going to want to try to isolate Torian York on one of these running backs that has a lot of speed. He's just going to want to try to do that. We'll see if he's able to, and what the results are. But that's probably one of the things he's going to look to do.
By the way, in that Auburn game too, so A&M showed cover 1, cover 2, and cover 3. So they're going to throw multiple looks at Quinn and Sark, nothing they haven't seen before. But in that environment, with everything, the communication is going to be massive. And that's Jake Majors to his offensive line and running back in pass pro, and that's Quinn to his wide receivers.
Yep. Good luck in that regard, right? It's going to be hard.
All right, y'all, let's jump over to some super chats because we definitely have quite a few of them to get to here. And J-Ray626 says Notre Dame doesn't have a conference championship game. Shouldn't they drop?
Yes and no in some ways. I will say this: they can't get a bye. That's their penalty for not having a conference championship game.
Yeah.
They can't have a bye. So where are you going to drop them? You know, they do have USC this weekend, and USC has a puncher's chance.
Yeah.
USC is not a very good football team this year. But you know, Notre Dame, like I said, I think they have a puncher's chance against them. Notre Dame should be a top 10 ranked team. They've beaten, I mean, their schedule outside of A&M is absolutely nobody, though. I mean, it's been horrible. Horribly easy. And but a little bit like Texas, every team they played that they're supposed to beat, they beat by double digits. So Notre Dame and Texas have some similarities this year, in my opinion, in their rankings. In that Texas hasn't beat the top tier SEC teams to this point because they haven't really faced any. Notre Dame hasn't faced anybody other than A&M all year long, in my opinion.
Then we have this one here from Christian. Thank you, Christian. He says, heading to get a Pinkerton smoked ham. Wanted to say happy Thanksgiving to Bobby, Jerry, and Blake. Fabric of my childhood is back with this game. Horns 31-20. Hook 'em.
I love it. I love Pinkerton's now has, if y'all are unfamiliar with Pinkerton's, it's a barbecue place in Texas, and they have one in San Antonio or in Houston. They have one in San Antonio now too. He also has one at the games. Right up next to Longhorn City Limits. He has a little kiosk there that he serves a hell of a brisket sandwich out of. But I'm going to get my own smoked turkey today from a barbecue restaurant as well for tomorrow. So thanks for stopping by, and thanks for that super chat, Christian. Good luck with everything you've got going on there in New Braunfels these days.
Hey, by the way, I saw 88 is great in the chat. I don't know if he was on there yesterday. If you haven't looked, I know there's more important things, hopefully a few more games first, but Dane Brugler does a really good job with NFL draft stuff, said 88 is great, sun is rising on NFL draft boards this season. So congrats to him for maximizing his talent, because at the end of the day, that's what all this is about.
Yep.
And then let's switch over to recruiting for a moment here. Cody Jones, we appreciate you. He says, where does Texas stand with Michael Fasusi? Do you think they'll land the #1 class when it's all said and done?
Bring up that recruiting graphic, and I'll break that down on the class real quick. Fasusi, look, I think there's some optimism, and that doesn't mean that Fasusi's going to Texas. I just think Texas feels like their visit last weekend went better probably than the June official visit. Not probably did. Okay, and I think Kyle Flood had a good message there. What happens? I can't say that yet. He's going to A&M this weekend. And we'll have to see what happens, right? But we're a week from signing day, and I think the final decision will be on December 4th, 5th, 6th, probably the 4th, right? But I do know that Michael Fasusi walked away from this Texas visit with maybe a higher opinion of everything than he did the last time for whatever reason. Does that mean Texas is going to get him? It doesn't. As far as the class breakdown, look, it's pretty easy. I post this on TexasFootball.com. The paths are pretty simple right now for Texas in reality. Now, there's going to be some guys decommit. Ohio State lost a guy yesterday. There's going to be some guys that are going to move around. But, hey, bring that back up, Blake, real quick, if you can.
I got it for you.
Okay. Because I just want to run through this. Okay, so here's the bottom line deal. If Texas closes with Michael Terry and Kellen Wiley, just say that's who they closed with. They're going to finish 2 or 3 depending on where Justice Terry shakes out, right? In that, if Texas doesn't get Justice Terry, because he's a 5-star, so he impacts the rankings. Does he go to Georgia? Does he go to Auburn? Probably Georgia, right? So if Texas were to close with Terry, Wiley, and Hilson, I think they're going to finish 2 with an outside shot at 1. Then it comes down to Justice Terry and Fasusi. If Texas gets one of those 5-star ranked guys, and those guys matter most in recruiting, if Texas gets 4 of these guys, I think Texas is going to finish with number 1 class. I'm not saying they're going to get 4 of those guys. I'm saying if. That's pretty much what's right in front of us right now. Texas is 4 or 5 in your class rankings. If they get Wiley and Terry, they're going to be 3/2, depending on where everything shakes out. If they get Wiley, Terry, and Hilson, I think they're going to finish 2 more than likely. If they get 4 of these 6, then I think they probably have a really good shot to finish number 1. I think it's pretty simple where they're at right now. The crazy thing is I think there's really, truly 3 teams that have a shot at the number 1 class right now. Georgia, best shot, because Justice Terry's in state. And if they get him, it's pretty much a lock at that point. Texas and Auburn. Look, Ohio State just lost London Merritt. Looks like Jakeem Stewart's probably going to end up at USC. I think Ohio State doesn't have as much runway as Georgia, Texas, and Auburn. Auburn is your sleeper for the number 1 class, because if they flip Naeem Offord and were to upset Georgia for Justice Terry, they close with 2 5-stars and they're already ranked 6.
Makes sense.
Yep. Okay, guys, before we get back to your questions and chats, first, Bobby, I want to let you tell everyone out there about Flat Creek.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you know that the most awarded wine in Texas is actually the vineyard that's closest to Austin? That's right. Flat Creek Estate Winery is just minutes from downtown, and they've won award after award this year for their vintage wine, Super Texan. It is one of the fastest sellers at HEB for good reason. Super Texan is now available there, as well as your local specs, so give it a try. Flat Creek is also a gorgeous venue with barbecues and wine tastings every single weekend. It's perfect also for a day date with your significant other. That's Flat Creek Estate Winery. Neil, Eva, Sean, those guys out there running a great company and have just this absolutely exquisite vineyard and view that you can't go out there. I mean, you go out there, you will fall in love with this place, guys. It is Texas Hill Country at its finest, and the wine ain't bad either.
Thank you, Bobby. And then we're going to get back to some more questions here. And actually, I want to start with this comment from Pinkerton's Barbecue, since we were just discussing that. He says, happy Thanksgiving and beat the Aggs.
There we go, Grant. Thanks, buddy. Oh, bud.
And then we got one here from Jacoby. And Jacoby says, good morning. Sorry to say, but according to the Aggies, I can't be a Longhorns fan anymore because I went to the military and didn't go to college there, and buying my shirt from Walmart is bad.
Dude, I want to say this. So I graduated from Texas, right? And so I'm not a quote-unquote T-shirt fan. What do you think my dad is? My dad didn't go to Texas. And you think I like the Longhorns more than he does? He's the one that taught me, man. That's one of those things that just, it doesn't matter, make a crap. I mean, look, there's certain things you learn when you go to Texas and are there, and it matters and all this other stuff. But being a fan of a team has nothing to do with where you necessarily went to college. I mean, but just ask, I mean, I know a lot of people actually that went to A&M that remain Texas fans. So that's, if people give you grief about that, tell them to go pound sand, because that's about what it's worth, in my opinion.
All right. And then our next one, fellas, comes from Albert. And Albert says, I want to see Quinn succeed as much as anyone, but he's had a rough stretch lately. It feels that lately we win with Quinn and not because of Quinn. Can you recall the last game we won because of Quinn?
I thought Quinn was exceptional in the Michigan game.
Florida, too.
Yep.
I thought he was really good in Florida. His deep ball against Florida loosened up the run game enough. But to your point, he's been hit or miss. There's no doubt about that, Jerry and Blake, right? I mean, we agree with Albert to some level. He has absolutely been up and down. I thought he was playing well against Arkansas to close that game and playing well to start against Kentucky, and then he got injured.
Yeah.
Part of the issue right now with Quinn is he has to stay healthy, and that's not something he necessarily has complete control over when people are dragging his legs, or he's throwing and hurting his oblique. So I am one of those guys that I sit back and I would agree Quinn is not perfect. Okay. Anybody that thinks Quinn is perfect or would say that I think Quinn is perfect is wrong. Is he better than Hudson Card, Malik Murphy, who would have been the Texas quarterbacks otherwise? The answer is unequivocally yes. Not close in that regard, in my opinion.
Correct. I agree.
So people wanting to disparage what they have, I understand wanting to critique Quinn, and I think every Texas quarterback, doesn't matter if it's Arch Manning or Vince Young, or I mean, believe me, Vince Young got pulled for Chance Mock. I mean, things happen, okay? Everybody has to understand that there are levels. Just because you critique a player doesn't mean you dislike a player. I would say this, Quinn has been, I mean, what are we in the last 2 years that he's been the starter? I mean, it's, they finished, 12-2 last year. They're 10-1 right now. I mean, they're 22-3 in the last 25 games. I mean, tell me somebody you'd rather be quarterback at Texas. I mean, I don't know that I wouldn't pick Garrett Nussmeier or Jackson Dart or any of those guys. Jalen Milroe, I mean, a lot of people thought he might win the Heisman. Not necessarily. Wouldn't take Nico Iamaleava. Now, that all being said, do I think Arch Manning has higher upside than Quinn Ewers? I do. But I also know he doesn't have 3 years of starting experience and 100% faith in Sark's offense. I mean, there's a reason experience and talent, when they come together, matter. And Quinn did not turn the ball over after that turnover against Kentucky. He calmed himself, got it back going, got the offense rolling. I'm a big Quinn fan, and we just have to put it in perspective. He's not John Elway, right? That people want him to be John Elway, I think because he was ranked so high coming out of high school, Jerry. They expect perfection, but he's going to be a solid pro, and he's definitely a leader of this Texas offense.
Yeah, I mean, look, he's going to have to find a way to stay healthy. I mean, he's never going to be able to finish development if he's injured that much. I mean, and he's been injured since his junior year of high school. I mean, he had the hernia. He's had bad luck injuries, by the way, but they're injuries nonetheless. And it's kept him from, I think, fully getting into the development part because you miss time in the weight room. You miss time with QB instruction and during the season and it's just, there's been so many injuries since junior year of high school for him. His healthiest year was the season at Ohio State when he didn't play. When he was the scout team quarterback. That's really part of what's holding him back right now.
Yeah, he's got to have more consistency of being on the field.
Yeah,
I agree with you. All right, hey, Blake, I know you got to get going, buddy. You got some stuff to do with Colt, et cetera. So we're going to let you go. Jerry and I are going to stay on and keep.
That's right. I'll be back tomorrow.
All right, see you, buddy. We are going to have a Thanksgiving coffee and football, given the fact that it is game week here for Texas versus Texas A&M. Thank you, Blake, for helping us out this morning. All right, let's go back to the chat line. Jerry, you ready to take some questions and talk a little bit? This one from Freelance Society. When the portal opens up, will Texas bring guys in for visits?
Crazy.
PFP and potential conference game make it crazy. The portal opens, I believe is it December 8th or December 9th, Jerry? One of those two.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's almost akin to being in the NCAA basketball tournament. Like college basketball coaches joke with, hey, if you make the tournament, you're in a disadvantage because all the teams that don't make the tournament they go straight into full-time recruiting, right? And now there's the advantage too. You're in the tournament. So Texas is going to, Texas in the play. We're in the playoffs, man. Come visit us and watch a playoff practice, right? So there's some things, but you're not on the road, right? You're not on the road. You can't, your staff can't leave. Then maybe you can. Look, where it gets interesting, Bobby, with the calendars, if the conference champion, then you get the additional week off. So maybe you have some time to hit the road. If you're not, you're more in game plan mode.
Or if it's portal, they're just coming to you.
Right. But a lot of times in these portals, now I'll say this, a lot of times in the portal recruiting, people fly out to not see the kid necessarily, but to see the kid.
Like Frederick, Maryland, to go see Jordan Addison.
Right.
Back in
and you're not going to be able to do that if you're preparing for a game.
Yeah.
Not your coach that's going to be coaching that kid if he comes your way. So I've said this before, the whole calendar is broken. I don't know the answer to it, but none of it makes sense right now. Absolutely none of it makes sense.
Naaman Roberts, Anthony Hill got snubbed. We talked about Gunnar Helm, I think, getting a little snubbed for the Mackey. But Anthony Hill having better stats than 2 of the 3 nominees for the Butkus, the young sophomore. Hopefully he takes that personally. Hopefully he takes a little personally what Trey Zune also said, that we've played great players too. D-Money can't get money. How does our defense compare to Georgia's defense of 2021 and 2022? Do y'all think our defense can carry us like that, even with an inconsistent offense? I want to say this. As good as Texas's defensive front is, they still don't have 2 dominating guys inside like Byron Murphy and Tavondre Sweat that Texas alone had, or a Jalen Carter like Georgia had. And so Georgia had size and speed. This Texas defense is getting it done with how well they play together. I'm not even sure that those Georgia defenses necessarily played well together. Maybe the one with Nakobe Dean. It was that in 21 or 22, Jerry?
Yeah, well, let me just read off the NFL draft picks off that defense to answer this question. Travon Walker, first rounder. Jordan Davis, first rounder. Quay Walker, first rounder. Devontae Wyatt, first rounder. Lewis Sine, first rounder. Nakobe Dean, the best linebacker in college football, third rounder. Channing Tindall, third rounder. There's more. The following year, guys that were on that team: Jalen Carter, first rounder. Nolan Smith, first rounder. Keely Ringo, fourth rounder. I mean, Robert Beal, fifth rounder. Warren McClendon, guys didn't even play the year before, fifth rounder. That team had 9 first-round picks on defense, that 21 defense. That was ridiculous. They were all front 7 guys and a safety.
Yeah. D-Money, I think that answers your question. Texas has a very good defense. They have a defense that I think plays extraordinarily well together. I think the sum of its parts is better than the individual parts themselves at some level. And that's a credit to not only those players for maximizing the system and scheme, but also the coaches as well for helping them do that. Drew Lockhart, would you consider A&M's defense a championship D?
No.
Only if they win the SEC.
No.
Only if they win the SEC, though, Jerry.
I think they have championship level players up in their front 4. I think behind that they don't.
Okay, that's fair. Ken Ward here. Good morning, OTF fam. That 98 game was the best, in my opinion. Long TD run by Ricky. Back and forth scoring. Kwame Cavill TD in the 4th. Last second kick to win it. Monster game from that win, too. And Ricky fumbled in that 4th quarter to give A&M the lead. And then he came back and Major Applewhite, he engineered a drive. Kwame Cavill.
Right, we forget it because Ricky won the Heisman, and I still think if football was number 1 in his life, he'd have been a top 3 rusher all time in the history of the NFL. Ricky fumbled to put the ball in the rug now. He had 2 fumbles in that game. Yep. And he was not now he carried it 35, 40 times. He touched it a lot, but he wasn't a big ball security guy. But he was just so great it didn't matter. He just made up for it on every other carry around it.
Yeah. Emmanuel Villafranco here with a good question. A&M's receivers are possession receivers for the most part, right? Not speedsters. Noah Thomas is not known as a speedster, but he has some quickness and he definitely has some size, and he definitely can eat up people in blocking. And I think he is a possession receiver of sorts, but he took a slant to the house against Auburn. What was that? 60 yards, 70 yards. Yeah. So they're they're not slow. And the Barber kid, is he still playing for them? I think he's
they lost Cyrus Allen, their number 2 receiver for the year a couple weeks ago, and that one hurt them a little bit.
They've gone, and because I think it's Marcel Reed, and Marcel Reed has a good arm, he doesn't have a great arm, so they don't throw to the perimeter a ton, or to the outside, excuse me, a ton because of that. So they look for the Olstrom, the tight end, Watson, the other tight end. They try to find matchups like that, in my opinion.
Yeah, and the tight end's a future draft pick, probably second, third round guy.
Dwayne Wehunt, what are the actual dates of the playoff rounds? I'm
December 20th, then take the week after that from there on out. And then there's about 10 days off before the national championship.
Yeah, there is. Let me give you this, because I actually just we're going to be in, if Texas wins, we will be in Atlanta, knock on wood. The SEC championship game, I believe, is at December 7th, and I think it's the evening game. It's either 6 or 7 o'clock. I don't know whether that was an Eastern time or a Central time that they gave me. And then you get a week off, and then the playoff game. There's one playoff game, that play-in game, basically.
So I just pulled it up. So it's December 21st is first round if you didn't get a bye. Quarterfinals, December 31st, January 1st. And that's Fiesta Bowl, Peach Bowl, Rose Bowl, Sugar Bowl. Semifinals, January 9th, 10th, Orange Bowl, Cotton Bowl. National Championship game, January 20th, CFP National Championship.
I want to add this. The first round, if you don't win the SEC Championship in Texas in a first-round game, it could be either that Friday the 20th, or they'll have one of those play-in games on the 20th, and then 3 of them on the 21st.
Yeah.
Just so you guys get it.
Yeah.
So, Dwayne, I don't know if we'll have a Friday night game in Texas. That's going to be hard, because you know that high school football going to be going on as well there, and everybody's going to be up for that. Jackson S., do we have a backup portal QB, or is it Owens' job? Right, and I guess he's talking about next year, obviously. Yeah. Arch would be 1. Trey Owens will be number 2 right out of the gate, even though I think KJ Lacey, young man out of Mobile, will be coming in at midterm. Jerry, question for you here. This is a good one, because
I love it.
We've been talking about it. King Me asked, better defense, Oklahoma or A&M? Based on what I saw last weekend, I'm not sure Oklahoma doesn't have a better defense than just about, 90% of the SEC right now.
I think Oklahoma's linebackers and safeties make their defense better.
That's fair.
And they're good enough up front on defense. They're not as talented as A&M up front. A&M up front, A&M's front 4 is the top 3 talented group in the college football, in my opinion. I mean, they have 2 projected first rounders and a second rounder, and
they paid for them back in 2000, and then they got the one out of the portal.
Yeah, I mean, just remember that with Auburn's class this year, where those guys get drafted. So, because those guys are freaking good, they have committed if all of them sign. But I think Oklahoma's linebackers, I know he's public enemy number 1 or 2, but Danny Stutzman's a damn good player now.
Yeah,
he is good in coverage. He has great instincts and diagnosing ability. Kip Lewis, they have big, fast linebackers and playmakers. And I think that makes their defense better as a whole. So I think it's, you split it up into parts. I think A&M's better up front, more talented up front. And Oklahoma's not bad, but A&M's just really talented up front. Even Josh Heupel, people have said that they've played A&M in the past. And then you have Oklahoma's linebackers. Gentry Williams was a big loss for OU at corner early in the season. But then I think Oklahoma's, Billy Bowman, the safeties, I think are better too, so corners may be a push.
Smart players. All right, one last sponsor here before we take more questions on the chat line. If you've been injured, a car wreck, truck wreck, automobile accident of any kind, make sure you reach out to Adam Lowy and the Lowy Law Firm. They've been helping injured Texans for 20 plus years. Just give them a call and they give you a free consultation, no strings attached. LowyLawFirm.com, 20 plus years of helping injured Texans. Again, LowyLawFirm.com. All right, Jerry, this question, I think a good one as well. Go here. Brian asks, what is our biggest strength and weakness against the Aggies this weekend? I want to say this. The biggest strength for me is an offense with a third-year starter at quarterback and a group of offensive linemen, 4 of 5, that have started every game for 2 years. Those are the biggest strengths. Now, you could say, oh, it's the Texas defense overall, and I wouldn't disagree. But given the loudness of that stadium, Jerry, and how into it the fans are going to be, I think that the experience of the offensive line is going to be the biggest strength. The biggest weakness, Jerry. Man, if I had to say that, biggest weakness I'd be worried about is running backs putting the ball on the carpet right now.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, or turnovers in general. I'm concerned about that. That's more of a concern than a weakness, though. What do you think? You have anything?
Yeah, look, the biggest strength Saturday in this one-game scenario better be Texas offensive line. Now, I'm a broken record, but I've just had 4 games where offensive line play is 1, 2, and 3 most critical for me. That was Michigan, that was Georgia, that was Oklahoma, Georgia, and A&M. If Texas offensive line plays at a very high level, I like Texas' chances a lot in this game. Weakness, special teams.
Ooh, yes.
On the road.
You're right.
Game.
God, oh. Hate to say it, but I think you're 100% right. I mean, what if Terry Bussey, Barry and Brown almost broke one on Texas.
If he didn't have fumble-itis, he might have scored.
Yes. To end the first half, that would have been a major downer.
Yeah.
Right? I think you're right, Jerry. I think that's a good one that I hadn't put out there, but Texas special teams have been far from special. They don't need to have a breakdown on this one. I want to add one other thing about the offensive line, Jerry. It's not so much that I expect them to be perfect on Saturday.
No.
It's that I expect them to be resilient in the face of adversity. Right? You expect them, yes, they are going to give up a sack, but I don't expect it to be 4 quarters of giving up sacks. They're too old and too experienced to do that, no matter whether their head's spinning or not. Yeah. I think they've learned from Georgia. I feel good about that group right now.
By the way, one of the hidden things in that Auburn A&M game, Auburn shanked one punt, had about a 35-yarder, and was pretty much playing a kicker that they pulled out of the stands when their stud kicker got hurt. That game only got into overtime because Auburn was not good on special teams.
Fair enough. All right, this one from Hale No. OTF, thank you for all the great content, experience, and confidence. Show up Saturday in a big way. That's exactly what we were talking about. The Longhorns should have an experience favor in their favor on Saturday. Hell no, thank you very much for the super chat. Jose Rodriguez, good morning, gents. I know it's rivalry week, but what is an A&M tradition you guys actually like? Jerry, be honest. I don't have one. I mean, it's not the cheerleaders.
I mean, I don't think collies are a bad pet. I don't know where they'd rank in, like, if you sent me to pick out my dog, it wouldn't be number 1.
I love you, Jerry. You're just freaking awesome, dude, to come up with that. For Casey
I would definitely go Basset Hound or Chihuahua over it, though, for sure, just to start off the top of my dog head.
You would have a Chihuahua of all the pets you could have. Nothing against Chihuahua.
He's a badass. Nothing like a good ankle biter. Street sweeper.
Casey here. For Thanksgiving, I'd be thankful if you guys stream until 10 when I leave work for the 4-day weekend. Your generosity in doing so is appreciated. We're going to have a normal show tomorrow, as normal as it can be. We're going to have myself, Jerry, and Blake all on, and we'll have our other shows going around as well on that day. So we'll definitely be there with you guys. Thanks for the super chat, Casey. Hope you guys are enjoying it. Jerry, we have actually had a basketball question I want you to get to, because it is that time of season right now. Is this from aggressively optimistic Texas fan? Is Rodney Terry looking for any more high schoolers, or is he just going to build through the portal next off season again? It's a weird. Basketball is going that direction where it's kind of this mix, so to speak, of the two pieces. What are your thoughts there?
Yeah, I think Texas signed one player early, John Clark, who I think's got a pro future. We'll see if that's an NBA first round future, NBA second round future, or a two-way contract. He's going to be one of the three. I mean, he's a really talented kid, long term. I do think they would like to sign two, outside shot three, but a lot of that just depends on where some of these guys late. They're in on Nate Ament, which will be a spring decision. And then it depends on where the coaching carousel falls, what opens up there potentially. But I think 2 to 3 is your number for Texas. And you got to remember, getting Jamie Vinson late last year in 2 years is going to look really good by Texas. The 6'10.5" freshman, he's going to end up being a really good player. And that was kind of a late signee type of situation. And then it's going to be through portal otherwise. I think the tough thing nowadays in college basketball, so U of H just arguably signed the best class since one of their 5 Slamma-Jamma classes in high school. But they're going to be really young next year. I mean, and you saw what happened a couple of years ago in the NCAA tournament when Duke is really talented and they went up against Rick Barnes, and Rick Barnes took it to a bully fight and they got bullied off the court. So you gotta watch being too young in college basketball. And I like the 2-3 man signing classes, and it's going to be portal after that.
Jerry, I know this is going to test you a little bit, but I want to put it up because I think it's what we have next. Because right after December 4th, signing day, then there's portal. And then Texas typically has a huge recruiting weekend in January for the next class. And this is a name I've heard. So I want to bring it up from Jesus Eduardo Garcia Olivas. Good morning, guys. Is Jamarian Carlton a defensive end of 2026 an early take? I'm really high on him. I know he's from the Central Texas area. I don't know much more personally. Is he an early guy, Jerry? Where is he from? That sort of stuff.
Yeah, Temple High is where he's from. I guess the last defensive lineman they had out there ended up being pretty good, signed with Texas, is in the NFL now. But we'll see on Jamari Carlton where that's at. He's passed up coming to some Texas home games late in the season. They go other places, Texas Tech, other places. Is he a take right now? I think that's to be determined. I mean, I don't think there's very many guys right now that can actually pick up the phone and call Texas and say, I want to commit. And they jump up and down and say, yeah, awesome. Great to have you. Sark is going to play this thing out and keep evaluating these guys. So I'm not sure he's that level guy. He's very good. And he's top, I think, 200, 300 level type kid in the country when all's said and done. He's got talent. But is he a take right now? I just don't think there are many of those guys. I can tell you there's 3 on the offensive line. And Amari Latimer, running back in Georgia, obviously is one. You can go through a few guys that are, but that list is shorter than it is longer right now.
Jalen Lott. Probably.
Yeah, Jalen Lott for sure.
Yeah, there's
Gibson Wyatt, the receiver at Mater Dei. Caden Finley, potentially.
Adelito. Yeah, Jamarcus.
Jamarcus. Yeah.
All right, let's go. We'll talk more about 2026 in the coming weeks. I wanted to answer that question to kind of preview it for everyone and get Jerry's thoughts on where everything is at. And I think he did a pretty good job explaining that right there. Jerry, is Elko running the same D more or less as he did at KU? Do you mean Duke? Or I didn't know Elko ran anything at Kentucky or Kansas. UK is Kentucky.
Yeah, I don't know. He may be Duke.
Yeah.
He's running a lot of stunts and twists up front, and I think it's interesting because I think there are a lot of simulated pressures around it. multiple in the secondary. It's interesting what they're doing with the defensive line, because I actually think they might have more sacks if they played more straight up than playing that many games. But there's a reason he thinks he has to play that many games up front. Now it got him ripped against Auburn.
Yeah, it got him ripped against South Carolina too.
Yeah.
He dials up the pressure. Like he likes to bring Dalton Brooks, Jerry, from distance. He likes to bring his linebackers. So you will see, I think, an aggressive defense, and that aggressive defense often exposes his DBs. That's why they are fairly down the list, in my opinion, on defensive stats when they have pretty good defensive personnel. Look at this, Jerry, if you don't mind. This is the A&M defense. 22 points per game they're giving up.
Yeah.
360 yards per game. 240 of those are through the passing game. That means A&M's defense is ranked 88th in the country against the pass. Okay, that's not great.
No,
and I think that's indicative of a team that is a little over aggressive, honestly, when it comes to that stuff.
Well, one of the things I look at, like if you go back to the Missouri game, Missouri had guys running wide open, and so did Auburn. Now Auburn's got Cam Coleman's a dude, like a first, second round level player in the future. And the other kid's really good. The guy that caught the Lambert Smith, he's a pro too on some level. But Missouri had some real chances. Guys were running wide open, but their offensive line couldn't hold up. LSU had some guys wide open, but A&M whipped LSU up front in that game too. So if you can pass pro, or if A&M twists and stunts their D tackles and edges out of it, if it takes them longer to get to the quarterback, if they run too many games, you're going to have guys open. If Sark has a chance for that mid-range game, those crossers to develop, they're going to be open against A&M. The whole key is giving Quinn a pocket and the vision to see it all develop.
I want to challenge something you just said. Okay. A&M smothered LSU in the second half. Okay. After A&M got going on offense.
Yeah.
And when you and so LSU had to abandon the run. When you have to abandon the run against A&M, that's when Elko's defense can eat you alive. That type of defense. Because it puts more and more pressure on your quarterback to get rid of the ball and make the right reads. So that if there is a thing to watch out for, you don't want Texas down by 2 scores against A&M, because then they're just going to pin their ears back.
Yeah.
All right. Dax Kelm, what are you guys hearing as far as ankle injuries on key players of both teams? Texas for Bond and Ewers, and Aggies for Reed. Guys, we're not going to say anything about Quinn Ewers. Just not going to. We're going to let Steve Sarkisian say what he wants to. The only thing I can report and will report is that Pete Thamel of ESPN yesterday on air said that he is hearing that Quinn Ewers is doing his best to give it a go and be his best self. Beyond that, we're going to let I'm not going to put anything out there that tells Texas A&M or anybody else anything. If somebody else reports it, I'll report it. Do I know more than that? Yes, I do. But I'm just not going there. As far as Isaiah Bond and Marcel Reed, yes, Bond has been nicked up. Hopefully he's coming back and improving. He really is a guy, Jerry, that could use a week off.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He needs a week off. Marcel Reed, I have no clue on that. He was limping somewhat, but I didn't get the feeling that is going to be a problem for the young man later this week.
I'll end with this. Somebody asked about Sark versus Elko as OC at Alabama, DC at A&M. They went up against each other. It's almost like the Georgia defensive discussion. And Alabama put up huge numbers. But again, Alabama had first-round quarterbacks, 4 first-round receivers, and multiple NFL offensive line picks. I mean, it was Alex Leatherwood first rounder, Najee Harris first round running back. I mean, Landon Dickerson second rounder. I mean, it was That was Evan Neal, first rounder, was a young player. They essentially started 11 NFL players on offense and like 5 or 6 first rounders. So Alabama smoked everybody on the offensive side of the ball when Nick Saban adapted to where college football was headed. And we had 4 first-round receivers. I'm not sure we see that again.
Yeah.
And one of them won the Heisman, and the other one would have won the Heisman if he didn't get hurt.
All right. I think that's going to do it for this morning's Coffee and Football. Thank you all so much for joining us again. Thank you also to Blake Monroe for hosting the early part of this. Jerry, as always, thanks for all your expertise and following of the Longhorns as well. And thanks to all of you guys out there. It is that time of season. Tomorrow is Thanksgiving, and I'm in a very I'm in one of those moods. My kids are coming home from college, right? And so I'm excited about that, to have them. Hope you guys get to spend some time with family and friends this week as well before the game on Saturday. All right. Thank you also to our sponsors, Adam Lowy over at the Lowy Law Firm, Tile, Flat Creek Estate Winery, as well as South Point Dodge over there off the Motor Mile. All right. For Jerry Hamilton and Blake Monroe, I'm Bobby Burton. You guys have a good one. We'll be back tomorrow later today with Stay of the Program and more. Hook 'em.